Hey guys, Dantix here, finally back with some more brand new Starfield information. This is not a drill, people. Bethesda has actually dropped a brand new trailer and given us a release date. Oh yes, get ready because on September the 6th this year, Starfield will be releasing, but that's not all. We'll be getting a huge Starfield Direct on June 11th. Right now though, we have a trailer to break down, so buckle up while I go through it all, including some footage you may have missed. So the trailer opens to a ship in space, much sleeker than we're used to given the game's NASA punk theme. It then cuts to the constellation star station L0868 in orbit around what looks to be an Earth-like garden world. A voiceover on the radio welcomes whatever ship is docking on it. Cut to inside the star station, and the same voice mentions that the eye is showing signs over another one of those big anomalies. Now, this is obviously a massive tease to the story of Starfield. We can speculate, but none of us really know exactly what is happening except Bethesda, of course. The eye was teased in trailers before this as a set of multiple rings that move around each other, and people, including me, speculated that it was a portal of some kind, making traveling the vast distances a lot quicker. However, as we can see in this trailer, it suggests on some moon-like object there's a castle, and in that castle is a door, and in that door is the eye, or at least one of the eyes. It reacts to something as you approach it, and inside its center, it shows the player character a glimpse of another galaxy. But that's all we're getting to see in it. A glimpse, which leaves a lot of room for interpretation. So are the eyes a bunch of artifacts scattered around the universe, or connected somehow, leading you from path to an ultimate goal? Answers to some grand question? Well, that's what I believe anyway. Let me know below what you think. It could also be that there is one single eye, and as the planet or moon it's on moves around it, it reacts differently. This castle, for instance, has rocks floating around it in a very eerie, something important is happening here right now kind of way. Could it be you return here when it starts showing signs of life? So looking into the eye, you're given a hint at a new location you should travel. Are you transported there? Does it do something more mysterious? Who knows? Right now my gut says you're transported somewhere, but that might be too obvious. Next, we get a look at the release date. For all those who aren't American, this means the 6th day of the 9th month, 2023, so less than 6 months away. Yes, this isn't as soon as some people hoped, but it is this year, pending any sort of delay, of course. Is that enough time to finish the game? Well, not that it means much to people, but Todd seemed confident. He says that they've poured themselves into this game, and he's surprised just how much they've poured because it is a large game. They're playing the game all the time, and yes, I'm going to zoom in and talk a bit more about the footage we see behind him in a second. Todd then goes on to mention that on the 11th of June, they're going to bring us into the studio for a deep dive Starfield Direct, as there's so much they have yet to show us. The game will have many of the hallmarks that we're used to, but it's also a very unique experience. There's a hint of excitement in his voice, so I have to say I'm pumped to see just how unique this experience is going to be. He thanks us for being patient and can't wait for us to play it. Trust me, Todd, we can't wait either. Now, let's zoom in and see what we can see. For this, I need to bump it up to the 4K version, and even with this, the footage is quite blurry. What we can see though is the player character in first person walking around a barren desert-like planet I believe to be Mars, but more on that later. It's the same interface we saw in the gameplay reveal trailer, showing the O2 levels, time of day, weapon, health, ammo, and such. We can't see exactly what weapon he has equipped, but it seems to be some kind of assault rifle. What is interesting though is that when the player pans to the ship, which can seemingly land anywhere flat, we see another human character. Could this potentially be a companion character? We don't know. We don't have any information on companions so far, but we know we will be getting them, so hopefully we find out more during the Direct. The dev then zooms out to a third-person perspective, sprints, and gets out the gun. We see a crosshair appear and not seem to contract and expand as the player is sprinting. Seemingly this means that the gun is the least accurate it can be while you're sprinting. Then, when the dev zooms back into first person and stops, we see the crosshairs contract. Also note that the white bar below the planet icon, which we thought to be O2 and CO2, is also a stamina meter. As you sprint, it seems to go down, and when the player stops, it seems to recover. More on this later. We have stopped at a wreckage of some kind. Hovering over these containers lets you loot what's inside them. I can't personally make out what's in there, so feel free to have a go yourself. Next, we see the player exploring under a structure of some kind. Cut to the next scene and he's taken flight, either used some kind of jump pack like we saw in the gameplay trailer, or has dropped off or jumped off somewhere high. He's being fired upon by some enemies I can't quite make out. The player is able to dodge and get behind cover, so there will be a button to dodge in combat. Get a little closer and the location pops up. Mars Mech Factory. That does say Mars, right? So we're on Mars. Either this is an evil mech factory you're trying to stop producing, or you've just invaded a private business and have every right to be shot at. It could be either one, giving it's a Bethesda game. Cut to a bit later and we're in first person combat. The player looks down sights and fires upon something I can't quite make out with a fairly 21st century looking ballistic rifle, which seems to have a fairly slow fire rate. No shots land, so we can't tell just how effective it is. My guess is the enemies are behind cover and therefore hard to see in this particular instance. Either that or they're automated turrets of some kind. Cut ahead and we see an explosion. My assumption is the dev threw a grenade as he's looking down the sights and waiting for it. As he moves on to the right, you can see the "You got experience" box appear below the crosshairs, so he must have killed the enemy with the nade. He then sprints to the right and goes to the quick swap menu. Here we see a range of different pistols loaded, as well as rifles and consumables. It's impossible to tell what's what with the limited information. He switches to a different rifle with a scope. Cut forward and the player has a new pistol out, no doubt looking for his next victim. So what this footage tells me is there'll be lots of combat moments, even on barren planets like Mars. It also tells me that you can hold a range of different guns at any given time, most likely based on your carry or mass limit. And you can also get them out with the quick swap menu. Moving on, we see a dev working on a basic set of animations within a cockpit of some kind. There isn't a whole lot of note to break down here, so let's move forward. Next, we see the same footage of a developer typing up a document on the Crimson Fleet that we've seen before. Here it is for those who haven't read it yet. It just seems like a little flavor text with nothing notable to discuss. We know very little about the Crimson Fleet except that they're the pirate faction and you can do missions with them as either a bad guy or a good guy spying on them, or a mix of both. Next, we see a much clearer look at the player on another planet. He also has a different spacesuit on than we've seen before. The jump jets are replaced with a large tank, most likely for O2, so it seems almost confirmed at this point that you could get different backpack pieces to provide different benefits. Might have to trade off the ability to boost jump for an extended oxygen pack. Do also note that oxygen in this game is your stamina, as we discussed before. As we burnt the sprint, the O2 depleted and the CO2 increased. It then filled back up as we stopped sprinting. This means that Bethesda have chosen to make it so you don't have to worry about running out of oxygen on non-oxygen based planets. You can explore in the game as you see fit, and I figured this was their reasoning. Much like changing how fuel works in the game so it's less tedious and more fun, they most likely decided early on that having to go back and refill your oxygen was tedious as well, so no doubt you just upgrade your oxygen capacity, and certain planets require different levels. So don't count out survival mode being introduced in the future, and most definitely don't count it out coming in a mod. So a bigger CO2 tank could mean much more stamina to play around with. Now we also see that he has a cool looking long barreled pistol with 6 bullets in the chamber and 2,119 spare. That's a hell of a lot of ammo. We also have 19 grenades ready to go, so either this is a dev playing in developer mode, or we have a lot of ammo and resources to play around with. This planet is also far more beautiful than we've seen previously and seems to host some kind of wind farm. Next we have a Wild Wild West style planet. There's a particular beauty in desert worlds like this. We see the planet has a different style of rifle holstered on his different style of backpack. No clue what this one does. If anyone can make out and read this code, go for it and let me know in the comments. However, cut to a new garden planet and we see some alien creatures in the distance. They're strange green brachiosaurus looking creatures. The player has a different coloured suit on with a different gun holstered. We get a better look at his inventory here. I hope this isn't the final product because there's no way I can work my inventory management magic in a single file. The player is looking much cooler here than the typical NASA punk theme we've had this whole time. Anyway, we have a few different helmets listed under the helmet tab. We also see the player does have a weight or mass limit. He's also creditless, probably because he has over 9 helmets in his inventory for some reason. Each helmet has DR, which I'm going to assume is durability. It was speculated based on the wear and tear we see on the player's armor in the previous gameplay trailer, but now it seems to be confirmed. This is good news for those who like the mechanic, as it will open doors for builds that aim to keep things fresh and new. The helmet provides damage protection from a range of sources, from physical to energy to whatever EM is, to thermal to airborne to corrosive and finally radiation. So we have a few different types of damage. It doesn't seem like the helmet provides any special effects. It also has its own mass and value. Perhaps the player will choose to sell one of these, it would be my suggestion at least. Then at the bottom we have options to hide the helmet, inspect, sort, favorite, drop and go back. We then see 2 other helmets, each with their own protection stats, weights and value. Finally, we see the player face off against 2 level 75 hunting Maggotmaws. The player has a different kind of gun equipped with a square reticule, suggesting it fires multiple shots in that pattern. We don't get to see it though, as the player attempts to throw a grenade and is immediately knocked on his ass by these aliens. These look quite terrifying up close. You have to wonder, will these be like Deathclaws were in Fallout? The name Maggotmaw would suggest so. So that's all the new information I have for you right now. It was a long way, people, but we got there in the end. Now begins some more waiting. So I'll leave it to Liara and Shepard.
Wait, Dan, pause for a second.
What?
Did you know that Dantix makes all kinds of gaming videos?
Yeah, of course. You calling me a moron?
No. It's just that you probably should subscribe. I mean, not only does it feel good, it'll make your dick way bigger.
That's a certifiable medical fact.
Can confirm. I subscribed and my dick is now of horse-like proportions.
Well, that's a no-brainer then. But what will happen if I like this video?
Balls.
Balls?
Balls.
Balls?
Balls.
Balls.